one thing we get a lot is like Jalen versus Purdy. And I get tweeted this, DM'd it when we see it on the stream, like the numbers.
My barber asked me today, John.
Do you know what we never talk about and I never think about? But it's like, it's a dramatic. Jalen has 11 rushing touchdowns. 11.
Yeah.
So if Jalen gets to 30 passing touchdowns, give or take, he's going to add another 15 plus rushing touchdowns. So when I was thinking like him and Purdy have similar, Jalen is also like a kind of version of Lamar Jackson as well. How did they just win the Bills game? He fucking ran it in. The play was literally just quarterback draw, which is a potent play for them against the majority of teams that don't have Fred Warner. It's going to be harder to do it this week, but like he's like, the more I thought about it, and to me, Purdy is an MVP candidate, but when we talk about him, like we can't, subjectively not include that. Like that's an objective fact. He brings an element that Purdy, who is a really good athlete, and is like this athletic Drew Brees, but he's not like he's never going to have 10 rushing touchdowns this season. Jalen has 10 before December every year.
And he's a major part of this game, right? Like if we went down the list that picked the 5 most important players in this game, I mean, Fred Warner would have to be on the list in terms of just somebody's going to have to tackle Jalen Hurts. Keep an eye on Jalen Hurts. It feels like it's a matter of time in every game before he kills you on a play. And unlike Lamar Jackson, Jalen has elite guys to throw the ball to, right?
Exactly.
He's got 50-50 ball monsters and a dude that nobody can catch. I mean, if you can catch Devontae Smith, you can body slam him, but you got to catch him. So I think this game is, I mean, the MVP is kind of on the line here. I think Hurts, I've not looked at the odds today or in a while. I think Jalen, given the fact that they're 10-1, if the Eagles win on Sunday, then I think the MVP is probably going to end up being his, right? The quarterback who accounts for offense on a 14-2 team is generally going to be the MVP when you're as dynamic as he is. Even if you look up, you're like, I don't know what his season completion percentage is. I just know every time I watch him, his highlight reel is going to be as good as anybody's highlight reel.
Yeah.
He was 55% the other night against the Bills. I would imagine his season completion percentage is probably 64. But now if the Niners win the game,
67.
67. All right. He's an MVP. He's the MVP if they win this game because they're going to be 14-2. And he's going to throw. How many touchdowns is he going to throw?
Well, he's got 18 now, so he's got 6 games left. No, it probably be like 28. But
28, but he'll run another.
What if he runs for
15?
17? He's got 11.
Now, if the Niners beat him, then maybe Kyle Shanahan turns Brock into the MVP. If the Niners beat him, maybe Kyle Shanahan delivers the first running back MVP since Adrian Peterson. If the Niners beat him, maybe he still has a great year and goes 14-2 and still wins the MVP. But I think a lot of what happens in this game, the Niners have just big time. McCaffrey can have a game, or if Brock can have a game, and then you do it again against the Ravens, and you somehow get the 1 seed. The Niners can really get MVP ball rolling in this. And I think Jalen, I think, is the most likely guy to get the MVP. Even if they lose the game, they still go 13-3 at worst.
I wonder if Christian could get back into it because statistically, he's got 1,000 yards almost. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns. He has 5 in the air, and he already has 48 catches. So if you rush for 1,600 yards,
league, right? Leading the league in rushing?
Yeah, let's say 1,650, and let's say he gets to 70-plus catches, and he goes off these next couple weeks against the Eagles, later against the Ravens. He's going to, I would say, goose his numbers a little bit against the Arizonas of the world, right? Seattle, again, their defense isn't great, and obviously they play well against the Rams. I would say he could throw his hat back in. It doesn't feel like he's in the mix. Like everyone's just acknowledging, like, first team All-Pro, best running back. But I think when you just talk MVP, he kind of fell out of favor after a couple, just his statistic, the games weren't as good. Part of it, like, they just weren't as good on offense. But I do think he could easily throw his hat back in the ring with 150 yards and a couple touchdowns in this, where he's like, was he the best player on the field today? I mean, there's a lot of like, was he the best player on the field? Because you're right. If Jalen's the best player on the field, throws for 2 touchdowns, runs for another 2, like it's going to be pretty hard. Like he might just win it. Like it might be unofficially over.
Well, just think about it. What I said with the record, like he's going to go 14-2.
Well,
if the Eagles win this game, I mean,
15.
maybe they go 15-1. Yeah, 15-2. Sorry.
17 games. Yeah.
Old math.
Yeah. I mean, he wins it last year if he doesn't miss those 3 games with the injury, right? The game just kind of went to
Eagles should have like multiple quarterback MVP. Carson was going to win it the year he got hurt, which would have been crazy to look back on a Carson Wentz MVP.
What would have been crazier, Carson or Derek?
Carson's year would have measured up over it.
I'm saying aged. Like what?
Yeah, I don't
know if you watched the other day. Derek looks terrible.
Well, they play the Lions this week.
Who does?
The Saints. Like the Niners and the Lions. Here's the other part of this game, John. The Niners and the Lions have the same record. Now, the Niners have the tiebreaker right now based on NFC winning percentage.
I like the Lions in that game.
Yeah, so you lose, like you could end up not the 1 seed, but also the 3 seed pretty quickly if you lose this game.
Yeah,
which is back where you were a couple weeks ago.
I guess they've played the Packers twice, huh? I do think the Lions could. I don't know. Actually, no. They got the Saints, the Bears. Denver game's a little harder. Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings.
But I got my first Lions moment of the year last week, and I think we got another one coming. But
they're still getting to 12, right?
Yeah, if they're 9-3 and you're 8-4, then they're 9-3 and you're 8. Like they,
yeah. Packers sneaky playing kind of good.
Well, I mean, are they?
Seattle's no lock to make the playoffs.
I think the Packers are going to make the playoffs.
But think about we're doing it with Purdy, which we can argue, is he going to be a top 5 guy? Right now he's definitely a top 10 guy so far this individual season. If everyone knew, Brock Purdy goes in the first round. That's where he'd go. Like, think about that. That's how valuable the position he plays.
How high would he go right now? Team X, not a Shanahan team, not the Niners.
Guys,
how high would he go?
Trey Lance's and Zach Wilson's, who can't play dead fucking in a Western, go 2nd and 3rd. So, yeah, I think he'd go really high. Now, in those situations, would he be as good? There were a lot of other factors, but like if you just threw him in next year's draft, is he going in the top 5?
Caleb would go ahead of him. May would go ahead of him. Would Nix or Penix go ahead of him?
I'd be hard pressed to say yes.